Alright guys, what's going on? My name is Joe, and today we're going to be doing some all-grain brewing. Alright, first things first, you want to sanitize everything you got. That includes wort chillers, spoons, airlocks, hydrometers, everything you got. I'll show you, got a little table set up, everything I've done over here. Also, I did the mash tun and boil kettle. Make sure you get everything good and sanitized. I use a food service product called Sanitabs. You can get Star Sands or anything like that. I use these. It was like 10 bucks for 150 tablets. Works out great for me. And basically, I just leave an extra bucket up here in the bathroom just in case I need to sanitize anything that I forgot or anything that just happens to get contaminated along the way. We got to get to the mash. I got my mash tun here, homemade from the cooler. Like I said, you guys can look it up if you need to figure out how to make one. But before we do that, we have to get the strike water hot to 165. So let's go out to the garage. Oh yeah, did I mention it's about 10 degrees outside? When I'm doing my 5-gallon batches, I usually end up with about 7 gallons of water here. I buy my own water because our water is pretty bad here. Just from the grocery store refill stations. I just bring these in. It's about $3. I think it's worth it. Alright, so I'm adding my water here for my strike water. I gotta get heated up in the turkey fryer. I'm putting about 4 gallons in here to start with the initial strike. I'll probably do the rest on the sparge, which will be about 3 gallons left over. I do 7 gallons total. I do have my jugs marked here so I can see I'm at 4 gallons left in there now. So I want about 1 more gallon out of there. We'll get this heated up to 165. Alright, so I got the burner lit on the turkey fryer here, and we need this to get up to 165. As you can see, not even close. Alright, so we are at 165, a little bit above there. I'm going to shut the gas off for the propane, and we're going to get this thing down to the basement and pour it in the mash tun. And this is where it gets tricky because this is hot. Alright, so once we got that all in there, make sure however you have your valve system set up, obviously make sure that's not leaking all over the place. Close this lid, let the cooler warm up for a little bit, and then we'll get our grain going. So, got the cooler all warmed up inside here. I'm going to pour my grain in really slowly and make sure it mixes in really well. Make sure every grain gets exposed to the hot water. Alright, now that I have it all in here, you guys can see, I'm just going to get a little stir around here just to make sure, just a slow, gentle stir, make sure every grain is getting exposed to the water here. Alright, so now we're all stirred up. All we got to do now is close the top, seal it up, and what I usually like to do is wrap it up with some kind of blanket. Use a sleeping bag, seems to work pretty good. Alright, so now what we do is wait for an hour. We got this thing all wrapped up. Set the kitchen timer. Mine only goes 59 minutes. So set it on and come back when that is done. Alright, so we got about a half hour left in the mash here. I'm going to get the sparge water going. Pour it back in the fryer. This is the other 3 gallons I have left over. It's going to be the same deal. We want to get this up to 165 degrees for the sparge. Although it's going to be a shorter amount of time, only 20 minutes instead of the hour. The sparge water is set at, what do we got, a little bit more than 165, so that's good. We have a few minutes left in the mash from the strike water, so that'll give this a few minutes to cool down. I'm going to bring it downstairs right now where the mash tun is. Alright, so it's been an hour here since we mashed in. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this guy, and we will drain this off. So now what we're going to do here is basically I'm going to run off a couple pitchers first. This gets all the little green particles out of what you're going to put in the boil here. Basically I will just lower this down and run a few the way my system's set up here until it runs clear. You can't really see it on the screen here, but yeah, it's running pretty clear right off the bat. So I'm gonna slowly pour this back in, and we will run the rest of this off. So we're gonna put these first run-ins into a container in order to transport over to the boil. It just happens to be my fermenter. We'll put this in here, and then I'll get the second run-ins in, the sparge water. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this right into here. And this is all just going to drain out, and then we'll get our second run-ins in here, our sparge water. And also make sure when you're getting down to the end here, got a lot of bubbles coming through, make sure to tip that cooler or mash tun, whatever you got, over to the side to make sure you get everything out of there for that first run-in. So I'm going to put my sparge water in here. It actually worked out pretty good. It came down exactly to 165 degrees, and you're just going to put this in there. Make sure that green bed mixes up a little bit. So we set this for 20 minutes, and we wait. So while we're waiting for the sparge water to work, we're going to go upstairs and get the yeast going. I'm using a dry yeast, so I'm going to have to rehydrate it. I mean, I don't have to, but it works a little bit better. Saves a couple days off your ferment, so we're going to go up and check that out. Alright, so I got my water for the rehydrating of the yeast at about 80 degrees. That's what Fermentus, the people that make my yeast, say we should be 80 degrees plus or minus 6 degrees Fahrenheit. So now I have it perfect temperature. I'm going to go ahead and mix this in. Let them go down in the mud where the rivers are dry. Now when you're mixing this in, you want to make sure not to allow it to clump, so we need to stir it as we're putting it in here. And as you can see, this starts to make a yeast cream, as they call it. Just keep stirring this. If you're using a dry yeast, if you're using a liquid yeast, you're probably going to be making a starter. A few days ago, you can find that in other videos. I'm using dry yeast because it's easy. I don't have to worry about making a starter, and usually the pitching rate is higher anyway. Alright, so it looks like our 20 minutes is up for the sparge water here. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this and run the rest back into my fermenter for transportation to the boil kettle. Alright, and the same thing goes as before when we're running this off here. To make sure we get everything out. As you can see, or maybe not see, the second time around the sparge water is a lot clearer than the last time, and that's okay, because basically all we're doing is getting the rest of the sugars and enzymes out of the mash here. Alright, so I got the wort back out to the garage here in the boil kettle, and now we are boiling. So this is going to go for 60 minutes. I'm going to put the hops in as soon as I get this thing up to a boiling temp. We'll start the 60-minute countdown from that. I got the thermometer in there, we're at like around 210, so obviously it's boiling there, you can see it. Now we're going to start the timer here. I have my hops all laid out here. I'll be putting them in at intervals within the boil here, and then the last thing is my Irish moss tab. I'm going to throw that in at the end just to improve clarity of the beer or the final outcome. It's kind of optional, you don't have to do it, but for 50 cents a tab at my local homebrew shop, why not? Yep, so once you get boiling here, make sure you turn your heat down, otherwise it's going to boil over all over the place and spill all over the floor and waste all your good, precious wort. So make sure you turn that heat down as soon as you get up to a rolling boil. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes here. I got about 45 minutes left in the boil. I'm going to put in my bittering hops now. I'm using pellet hops here, as you may have seen earlier when I was showing you. Basically, I just sprinkle them all in like that, give it a good stir, and make sure it doesn't boil over. You lose about a gallon of liquid per hour boiling here. So basically, we started at about just over 6 gallons, and when we get done here, it'll be just over 5. Alright, so there's about a half hour into the boil here. I'm going to start adding my Cascade, which is a dual-purpose hop. I'm going to use it for both putting it in the middle of the boil like this will kind of be like a bittering, not really, mostly like an aroma. And then also I'm going to add another ounce right towards the end of the boil here. Alright, Alright, so we're getting down to about 10 minutes left in the boil here. I'm going to put in my Cascade hops for the aroma right at the end here. The second edition of Cascade. Also, I'm going to put in my Irish Moss tab that I have. That'll help for the clarifying of the final product here when we're all done. Pop that guy in right there, give it a stir, and we'll wait out another 10 minutes, and then we'll go chill it down. Alright, so we only got a few seconds left here in the boil. I'm going to go ahead and shut the gas down and get this thing inside. I'm going to hook it up to my wort chiller.